Today, I would like to talk about Buddhas everywhere. When I first came to this temple, I, like many new people, were a little bit confused about why the Buddha was standing, and it didn't look like the historical Buddha. And I thought this was a Jodo Shinshu, Shin Buddhism problem or issue, but it's really a Mahayana issue. There's really Buddhas just everywhere in the Mahayana tradition. And, Amida Buddha is just one of many. This is the one we focus on. This is a picture, actually, of our statue taken from the side for a little bit different perspective. But this is the fundamental or original Buddha that embraces all in wisdom and compassion. And when we look at these statues, we tend to ask questions like, who is that? And it's not really a who, it's more of a what. It's what these statues represent artistically, emotionally. When you look at it, how does it make you feel? And what is the artist trying to convey? So when Linda and I first came here in 1997, it was for the Hanamatsuri festival. And our kids must have been with us when we walked into the Hondo, but it was very peaceful and quiet, so they might have been somewhere else. But Linda and I walked into the Hondo, and it was open, but there was no one here. And the incense were burning, and it was very quiet, and I could smell the fragrance. And this visual image was immersive, overwhelming. It really touched my heart. It made me feel something. And I remember thinking to myself, I wish my life felt the way the altar looked. And that might have been my conversion to Buddhism, is this feeling I had towards form and art and shapes. So I'm a visual learner. When I went to college, I used to highlight my books so much that my math professor said it would have been more efficient to highlight the parts that you weren't going to pay attention to, because the whole page was yellow. But I realized it was a physical reinforcement, a visual physical action, where by highlighting lines, I was like enacting them, and they kind of sunk in that way. So I'm very visual. I like statues a lot. And I've been given lots of statues by a lot of Sangha members and family members. And there's a temple somewhere in California called the Temple of 10,000 Buddhas, and my house is quickly approaching that. And I really wanted to thank everyone. I wanted to show you my three favorites. Let me see, what order? When I was a programmer, we hired a lot of programmers in India. We had a lot of programmers in Shanghai, China. And one of my workmates went to Shanghai to do a training. And he left the city and went up into the mountains on a walk, and he found a Buddhist temple in China. And he went in, and I think this was after 9/11. He bought me this statue of a sitting Buddha. And this is like solid metal, steel. It weighs like, 5 pounds. It's got this beautiful patina to it. It's one of my very favorites. So he brought this back and got it through customs somehow and gave this to me. And it's a little bit unusual because this Buddha, his hands are in a meditative pose, but he's holding a bowl. So that's a little unusual. So it's possible this represents the bowl of sweet rice that he received from Sujata under the Bodhi tree. So this is before enlightenment. He's got his rice, he's regained his strength, and he's beginning to meditate. So everything in here is an element, and it means something. It's not whether it was true or not. Like, I don't know if the Buddha really had a bowl or not, but it symbolizes that part of the narrative. And then I told my son Teague that I really wanted this reclining Buddha. This is the Buddha as he's passing away. And I'm actually placed it correctly. His head's supposed to be pointing north, and he's supposed to be looking towards the western Pure Land. So the positioning is very important. Teague went on to eBay, and he said there was a young man who was selling this statue, and I guess his dad was in the Navy, and the dad had passed away. And when the son opened the footlocker to clear out his dad's things and kind of do an inventory, he found this statue in his dad's footlocker. So it may have come from Vietnam, from Korea, but it's all wood, and it's one of my favorites. It's very rare, very hard to find. And then a Sangha member gave me this. This is Kanon, Avalokitesvara, Kuan Yin, depending on what country you're in. But this is the Bodhisattva of compassion. And so in the Mahayana tradition, there's Bodhisattvas and Buddhas all over the place. I mean, every time you turn around in Japan, you would bump into another statue. So the reason why Shakyamuni or Amida is up there is just a little tip of the iceberg of Mahayana Buddhism. So a lot of this talk is based on this book called Behold the Buddha by James C. Dobbins, Religious Meaning of Japanese Buddhist Icons. And he says that traditions like Zen, they open with practice, but we open with a story, the story of Dharmakara and Amida Buddha. And he says in the book, images of the Buddha have a narrative quality about them, as if they're telling a story or describing a momentous occurrence. It thus constitutes a sacred narrative that undergirds the religion as a whole. Observers who are attuned to it while engaging the icon are able to behold the Buddha and hear the story. So in a sense, it's trying to awaken our imagination. It's this grand story, and you begin to identify with the story, and maybe you become a character in that story. And then because I'm a math person, I kind of would like Americans to just be logically consistent, myself included. First of all, we have a program called IMOP, International Ministers Orientation Program, where ministers come from Japan and they're oriented in American culture and language, and they visit temples. And one of them stayed at our house, and I was driving north on Beach Boulevard to get to OCBC, and there was a lull in the conversation. And first I asked him, what's the biggest difference between Japan and America? And he said, Americans' cars are really dirty. He said, cars in Japan are always clean. And as I was driving, I realized my car was super dirty. So then, to make things worse, I looked at him and I said, out of the blue, I said, do people in Japan think Amida Buddha is a real person? And he gave me the most deadly side eye I've ever gotten. He just went. And he said, where did you get that from? So this, I think, is an American thing. Like when we have the Statue of Liberty, it's not religious. So we don't think of it as a real lady, a real person. But for some reason, when we go into a religious context and we see a statue, it has to be historically accurate, it has to be factual, or it's not true. So it's really weird. We don't do this with other statues, but when it comes to religious statues, we do. So it says here that the Statue of Liberty started as a romantic idea and became the most monumental gift in American history. Today it stands as a singular symbol of hope and spirit. So whether we honor the statue or not is one thing, but it's trying to awaken our imagination, a way of being embracing, being compassionate to others, being open to new citizens and experiences, and to be welcoming to those that come to our shores. So I wanted to show you this is kind of a show and tell class. All these statues I got from OCBC people. The one on the left, I didn't really know what it was, and I'm still not sure, but it looks like a little baby riding on an elephant. So I'm guessing that this is Hanamatsuri, but I'm not sure. So this is one of the statues I've received. And then the one in the middle, I think is the historical Buddha. And these you can get at garden shops, right? You can buy garden Buddhas everywhere. I'm not sure if I think it's a good idea or not, but it's introducing people to Buddhism. And so I think this is a bird feeder Buddha. But I put it under a tree. I don't have a Bodhi tree. This is an orange blossom tree, but he's in my backyard meditating under a tree. And it's kind of nice. You can make an offering of bird food, and then the birds will come and gather and kind of do gasho when they eat to the Buddha every time they pick up a seed. And then this one on the right I like a lot. It's Kuan Yin, Kanon, but she's in this relaxed pose, this very relaxed, very calm. You don't see Buddhas sitting like, kind of relaxed like this. It's very informal, very welcoming and warm. And then there's a lot of animal Buddhas in the United States. We have these in our house. There's a cat Buddha doing gasho. And they have an advantage because they can actually practice Buddhism for 9 lives. So if they get it wrong, they can always come back again. Turtles can't do that, but they live very long. And long life is a sign of an advanced spiritual being in Indian Buddhism. So, they live like 100 years, and they practice very deliberately. They're not in a rush, very slow. And then there's this one I like. I think this is a lama. So you may have heard of this. This is the Dalai Lama. Have you heard of him? This is the one they were talking about. And then I have all these little animals from Japan in Gasho. And the first one I got was the red or the brownish dog on the left. And I got that from a Girl Scout. She said, "I thought you might like this." And I thought it was fantastic. So I had this little bowing fox or dog, little bowing dog, and I have him in my office facing a Buddha in Gasho. And then somebody else heard about this, and they gave me that red fox. I think it was Jill Katsuda. She gave me the red fox. And then Reverend Wonder helped me a lot because I went on eBay, and I found that you could get a box of these guys. But it was all in Japanese. And I said, "Sensei, I really want to buy this. Could you please help me? It's in yen, and I don't know how to work Japanese eBay." So Sensei helped me. So now I have 2 dogs because he came in the pack. So 2 dogs. There's an otter, a penguin, a cat, a fox, and a white whale, and they're all in Gasho, which I really I don't know. It makes me feel good. And then I have 3 of these, the Hote. This is the Chinese restaurant Buddha. I'm not a big fan of Hote. I think he's let himself go. But this is an American cultural thing. The reason why he's overweight is not because he, is overindulging and he's greedy and he's eating too much. It represents being satiated. Or, back then, there wasn't a lot of food. Hote was supposed to be from the 10th century China. There's not a lot of food. So if you were overweight, it meant that you were calm and you didn't have to worry about worldly things and you could relax. And I found out just yesterday, I looked up Hote. It's Japanese for like burlap bag. That's what the internet said. Sensei will tell me later, that's not what it means. But he used to have a bag, and it's over his shoulder, and he was this is legend, but he was a monastic monk. He was a wanderer, a solitary wandering monk who would give out treats and candy and cookies to children with this burlap bag. And then this one I thought was very unusual. I was at the car wash on Beach in Garfield, and they're selling this Buddha at the car wash. And I was just like, what's going on? And I thought it looked a little unusual to me. Something about it was off. So I Googled, and this might be a neat thing in America, but traditionally the Buddha doesn't bow to other people. Usually the Buddha's teaching or meditating or practicing, and everyone else is bowing and doing gasho to him. So that's what makes this unusual. Is it's rare to see a Buddha in this position. And then one of our Sangha members made this for me using a 3D printer. So they designed this. So this is a very modern work of art. They designed this, and he printed it out on a digital printer. So I have that in my office. And then this one is really great. This is a chocolate Buddha. It's a chocolate Buddha. And I couldn't bring myself to eat it. I know it's dumb, but I have a Christian background, and I wouldn't eat a chocolate Jesus. Even though the Buddha's not divine and he's fully human, I just couldn't bring myself to eat. I just couldn't bite his head off. But I think this was from France. And it says, it's an edible, handcrafted, gold-dusted Buddha sculpture filled with a honey-infused silk milk chocolate ganache and finished with a liquid center of Savannah Bee Company honey. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to eat this. So it's, these aren't traditional statues, but this is modern America, And this is the way people are expressing their devotion or their appreciation. So I wanted to show you a little bit more traditional take on this now. In this book, I love this paragraph. He said, Pure Land, more than many types of Buddhism, make eloquent use of form, visual, verbal, meditative, and iconographic, to engender a Buddhist frame of mind, while simultaneously affirming Mahayana themes of formlessness, emptiness, suchness, Dharma body, and nirvana, which are all considered congruent and implicit in these Pure Land forms. So in a sense, Pure Land Buddhism uses form to explain and have an emotional reaction with the formless, with ultimate reality. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these statues are signaling a certain type of practice or a certain type of activity. So these are called hand mudras. They're very important in India. They're very important in yoga. Linda and I have a big, thick book of mudras, but there's no organizing principle, so they're hard to look up. It's not even kanji. There's a way of looking up kanji, but with hand mudras, I don't know what you're supposed to do. You just turn the pages until you find it. But here's the one that we do. We call this gasho. They call it namaskar or Anjali mudra. It's a oneness gesture that we use. We're not praying. And then this is the mudra for meditation. It signals meditative practice. In India, it's called jhana. And in China, they tried to say jhana, but it came out chan. And then chan in Japan came out as zen. So everybody's pronouncing the same word, but it just comes out differently with different vocabularies and alphabets. Oops. Okay. And then this one is the hand gesture that the Buddha uses when he realizes awakening in the earth witness. So he places one hand in his lap, which means that all wishes have been fulfilled. Everything's taken care of. It's fait accompli. And then the other hand, he touches the earth. So it's almost like he's checking whether he's dreaming or not. Like, am I really awakening? Or am I just imagining it? Or am I asleep? And it's like, I'm going to reach out, and if I touch the ground, I know I'm meditating. I know this is real. So it's kind of the earth as being a witness to this event. And then this is the one for Amida Buddha. We take, I always get my left and right mixed up. We take, this hand comes down like this, which means, again, it's the same hand gesture as the sitting Buddha, that all wishes are fulfilled. Everything's taken care of. You're all right now. And then this is the position for teaching the Dharma, spreading the Dharma. So when we listen to the Dharma and we practice the teachings, everything is okay. Everything is going to work out in the end. And you can kind of exhale because you found the solution and you're now on the path. So from this book, he kind of gives two different ways of interpreting statues. One is a little bit more realistic, a little bit more historical. There's the quest, there's the realization of enlightenment, and then there's compassion, which is spreading the Dharma from 35 to 80 years of age. So on the quest, you'll see these hand mudra for meditative practice. So here's my Buddha from Shanghai. He just ate his rice out of the bowl, and he's sitting on the Bodhi tree. And here's another statue that I received recently. The same thing, sitting in a meditative position. And you notice they're not really sitting on a lotus blossom yet. So when they're on a lotus blossom, that means they're blooming, they've achieved awakening, they've achieved insight. So this is kind of like the quest statue. And next we have the realization statue, which is the hand mudras I mentioned earlier, touching the earth and all wishes are fulfilled or granted. And that's this one. So, depending, when you go home and look at your statue, you kind of see what theme it's emphasizing. And then compassion is the Buddha teaching, getting out from under the Bodhi tree and going out into the world and teaching. And so these are the hand mudras of Amida Buddha. And this is a statue I found. It's not gold and it doesn't look like a Jodo Shinshu, but it's the Buddha standing. So a standing statue is very unusual. He's not sitting in meditation. He's up, he's engaging the world, and he's teaching, and he's encouraging people to join him on the path. So this is a major difference when you have a standing Buddha, just like Kannon. And he also says that these statues can also be very helpful in a more symbolic way or metaphoric way. For instance, it can symbolize an event. So one of the everyday Buddhist students emailed me this image, and I looked it up. It's from Taiwan. This is a statue in Taiwan. And he sent it to me, and he said, I have a picture of the Buddha. And I assumed it was the historical Buddha. But, all these statues are statues of Buddha. So I looked at it really close yesterday before this service, and I realized this isn't, the historical Buddha. It's not Amida Buddha. It looks like Kannon again. I didn't quite realize that, but it looks like Kannon. And then I noticed that it's holding a little baby. I've never seen a statue like this before. So it might be saying that the historical Buddha from birth was embraced by the teachings, by the compassionate embrace of the flow of interdependence and impermanence. And he's been nurtured within this embrace his whole life, and it became realized at 35 years old under the Bodhi tree. So there's so many different kinds of statues with different meanings. You kind of just have to look at it and just let it wash over you. And then there's one about embodying a quality. So the quality here is compassion. We have this statue here on the left is just the bust, the head of Kannon, and this is from the Buddhist temple of San Diego. So they've got lots of statues in their lobby as well. So here's Kannon at the San Diego temple in the lobby. The quality of compassion, of teaching, of making people feel welcome to the path, asking people to join. And then this one's famous. Most of us talk about this one. This is the Buddha looking back over its shoulder. So rather than leaning in to the audience, it's looking over its shoulder, kind of waiting for the scragglers, the people that are still out in the lobby talking and service is starting. So very compassionate, waiting for everybody to kind of catch up and to join before beginning. And I assume this statue was like 8 feet tall or something. Reverend Crane said she saw it in Japan in person, and it was only like 3.5 feet tall. But this is a very famous image in our tradition. It have the Buddha looking over its shoulder. And then this is the one I think I like the most. It's a way of immersing the viewer, kind of overwhelming you visually, really touching your heart. So I was in one of the Dharma School classrooms, and over somebody's shoulder, I saw this picture. And this picture, I haven't spent a lot of time looking it up. I think it's from Japan. But it was used in an ad. This was a poster advertising Japanese airline. And I have it now. Dharma School gave it to me. But it's very brittle and dry, and I was afraid to bring it because I'll tear it or break it. But this idea, like, you don't have to know the history and the facts and who the artist was and when it was done and what tradition created this work of art and what temple is it in. I mean, when I look at it, it's just golden Buddhas everywhere, light of wisdom radiating everywhere. I mean, when I look at this, I feel overwhelmed. I feel part of something this is the way that Pure Land Buddhism reaches the Sangha. So maybe we'll talk about this at adult discussion, but there's two major forms of Buddhism. One is kind of silent and lean, kind of like Protestant Christianity, like Zen. And then there's another schools of Buddhism that are more Catholic in nature. They use a lot of forms, a lot of objects and language and images to touch the audience. And Tibetan Buddhism is like that. Koyasan, Shingon, Pure Land Buddhism is like that. This is just, there is so much stuff up here. Sometimes I get a little triggered. It's just so busy. There's so many things. And that's by design. The other thing I was taught is that visually what's going on here is giving you an alternative way of viewing your world. So this side of the Hondo is it's not bad, but it's just bland earth tones. There's no cathedral ceilings. There's no stained glass windows. It's just kind of flat. And this is how our life normally is. It's just an off shade of beige. But then there's a border here. This is the unawakened person, and this is how the world looks like to somebody who's awakened and joined a Buddhist Sangha and is walking the path. That life begins to look like this. So this is kind of like a before and after, or giving you a contrast. There's a contrast in your life, and you can accept one or the other. And this is supposed to awaken an aspiration. It's supposed to be inspirational. It's supposed to awaken a hope or a dream that I could do this, that this could be my world. I just have to, step into it and be part of it. And I think this is more powerful, or maybe a really great complement to doctrine and the teachings. I think a lot of Americans, myself included, I want to understand Buddhism, but I've kind of been telling students maybe you should worry a bit more about how does it feel? Just how does it feel to you? When you heard the Dharma talk, or you look at the Naijin, or when you're chanting, what does that feel like? Rather than trying to find a translation or an explanation, you just kind of relax and let the tradition watch over you through rituals and physical activities such as bowing, Namo Gasho, offering incense. All these things are transformative in how you feel for the rest of the day. So I want to thank you very much for that, for listening, and going on my museum tour with me. Thank you. Namo Amidabuts, Namo Amidabuts, Naman Dabuts, Naman Dabuts.